Welcome, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Tracy Nyer, and I'm with the Virginia Small Business Development Center. For those of you who are not familiar, the Virginia SBDC is a partnership program between the U.S. Small Business Administration and George Mason University and local institutions throughout Virginia. We provide customized counseling and education for small businesses. Most of the time, our services are offered locally in 27 locations throughout the Commonwealth. Of course, right now, all of our offices are still open and helping businesses, but like everybody else, we've had to change how we're doing business. So all of our business counselors and trainings are still available, but available virtually. Today's webinar, Introduction to Best e-commerce platforms for small businesses, is the first in a series this week we're doing called The Road to Recovery. So be sure to join us every day this week for a different topic. Today's webinar is being presented by Ray Sidney Smith, a digital marketing strategist and president of W3 Consulting. He's also the author of So Lomo Success, Social Media, Local and Mobile Marketing, Small Business Strategy Explained, and Podcasting for Small Businesses. Ray is also a Google Small Business Advisor, Evernight Certified Consultant, and Hootsuite Global Brand Ambassador. Before we get started, just a couple of housekeeping items. We're recording today's webinar, and it, as well as the slides, will be available on our website under webinars and recordings. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type those in the question window, and we'll do our best to answer them at the end of the presentation. Without further ado, here's Ray.
Thank you, Tracy, and thank you to the SBDC Network for having me here for today's webinar. Continuing Tracy's housekeeping items, if you have questions, use the question panel now. I'm here live to talk to you, so feel free to ask those questions as we make our way through our hour together. If you have questions afterward, I'll have my email address on the final slide, but as those of you who have probably seen me before know, I am a Twitter fan. Maybe fanatic is the right word. So you can always reach me on Twitter. Just hashtag it eCommerce, and then I'll know the context of the item. And of course, go ahead and follow the SBDCs, both Lord Fairfax SBDC and Virginia SBDC, for future information, and they can respond to you. And they're putting out content about upcoming things like these webinars and other programs and information as we make our way through the road to recovery. So with those housekeeping items out of the way, our agenda for today. What I'd like to do is just talk a little bit about what and actually why e-commerce and why you should be paying attention to e-commerce today. It's pretty self-evident, but we're going to cover a little bit about the points of what I think are really important regarding that. We'll talk about how to select an e-commerce platform for your business, and there are some criteria that I like to cover as it relates to this, and we'll go through that. Then we're going to hop into the actual websites, and I'm going to walk you through the various features of the e-commerce platforms that I find myself frequently recommending or clients using, and what their pros and cons are of those. So we're going to spend a little bit of time on that today. I'm going to then cover in just brief some additional considerations, things that people sometimes don't think about when it comes to gaining an edge in e-commerce, especially as a small business. You think, oh, well, only enterprise can do that. When in reality, today, there are available tools that allow you to do some really sophisticated things as a small business, and I want you to know about those. We'll leave some time at the end for Q&A, and I'll be happy to stay as long as we need to answer those questions, and we'll go from there. So that's our agenda today, and let's get into what is e-commerce and why. I was in researching for today's webinar, I found some articles back from 2013, 2014 talking about the importance and power of e-commerce and how it was going to change the world. And here we are in 2020, and it seems as though a pandemic is the right trigger for people to start thinking about how to do business online, because over the past decade or so of talking about this topic, it really has been an issue of people not really feeling a necessity to increase their e-commerce presence. And so I'm heartened to see so many business owners really engaging in the process of figuring out how to do this, whether it's out of necessity or out of growth mindset. It's really time to be able to think about this. But if you want to consider some basic stats regarding this, we're probably on the precipice of somewhere between 1.7 to 2.2 billion people on the planet who will be buying online in 2020 into 2021. We have many new markets globally that are coming online, and because of that, that equates to a quarter to maybe a third of the world's population now buying online. And remember, many of them are going to be buying on their mobile devices because that is their computer. So many people outside of the US are going to be buying on devices that's the first computer they're ever going to have, and it's probably going to be a mobile phone connected to broadband connections through cellular or satellite connections. So e-commerce is the way in which we talking about road to recovery, right? This is the way in which we can stabilize both business incomes as well as poising ourselves for greater business resiliency into the future. So I really want people to pay attention to the fact that e-commerce is not going to just go away once we get through this challenging time. It will stick with us and keep growing as it has been over the past decade. And I see a lot more people starting to think, well, why should I go to a retail store? And us having to navigate that water, that if you do have a physical retail outlet, a physical retail store, making sure that you're able to explain to folks why they do want to come for retail traffic purposes to your store, and then why they would want to navigate to your e-commerce, and giving them the spectrum of options that will allow them to both trust in your business more, right? It's not just about knowing, liking, and trusting your business, but providing stability and brand consistency. And that means I should be able to buy from you no matter when I want to buy from you. If I want to buy from you at 2:00 in the morning while I'm Netflix binge watching, let me. And that's really the point of all of this, is giving everybody options for being able to, yes, when I need to, I can walk into your retail store once this is all over and be able to shop in store. When I'm not able to, and say I'm on vacation or I'm on business trips, let me still have interaction and engagement with your e-commerce solution to be able to still support you as a small business, as opposed to going to a big business or a big box store and spending my dollars elsewhere. So, a couple things to keep in mind when we're talking about e-commerce. One is that frequently what I see is people not remembering that when you make the transition from in a physical store location where you might be providing products or services, it doesn't really matter. There is a level of physical presence, a level of marketing that's done by the very nature of the setup of your space. Physical spaces need to be interpreted into digital spaces. This is like fundamental kind of transition work that needs to be done and needs to be figured out. But frequently what people do is they go, okay, well, I'm just going to go to an e-commerce solution. I'm going to sign up for an account. I'm going to put in all the information that is necessary to get set up, and then voila, the business will start flowing. But in reality, no, good retail stores have figured out the branding and the appropriate metrics to be able to bring people in, appropriate components to be able to bring people into the retail experience. And that means retail product display or even just signage that you would have in a normal service environment. Those things need to be considered. You need to think about the retail experience. What's the first impression I have of the business as I meet you online for the first time? If you're a small business with a really great retail experience on your website, good web presence, good e-commerce brand presence, I'm much more likely to buy from you than I would if you had some, kind of befuddled, piecemealed website stuck together that just said buy now, which had buy now buttons on it. You need to think about this from a consistent, cohesive retail marketing strategy, and that means experience matters. So that's number one. A lot of this has to do with product info. So think about the fact that video, image, product descriptions, all of those things are not necessarily things that you would have in a physical retail environment, but they stand for the physical products that you're selling or the services that you're selling now in its stead. So you need to think about, okay, well, how are we going to have good product images or good video or good descriptions that allow us to be able to do so? Some advantages of e-commerce even come to play here, because I can say to you, you know what? I can put testimonials, reviews of products on the page in that retail experience, so that when you walk into a retail store, you don't usually see reviews sitting next to the products. You don't see like a 5-star review sitting next to the package of rice on the grocery shelf. But now you're able to actually see that content in an e-commerce environment that really helps to elevate your ability to build credibility and credence and authority for that particular product. So use the pieces here that you are given in an e-commerce solution to really work on the retail experience. Of course, you have to also think about checkout and payment options. Those are important pieces, and giving people options. We're going to talk about that a little bit later, but I just want to make sure you're aware that part of what is e-commerce is the ability to take payments and payments that I want to give. For example, you're going to potentially have an older crowd, the more mature crowd who's more comfortable with paying by check, and that means using bank draft systems. And so if your payment gateway doesn't take that, and you have someone who's not comfortable with paying by credit card online, well, you're going to lose business. So how do you overcome those pieces and add functionality that provides them the appropriate payment gateways? So this is going to come into your decision as to what e-commerce solution you're going to use. And finally, service after the sale, as they say, but it's actually service before the sale. Customer service and support are a vehicle for sales. Think about how your help section or FAQ section is set up on your website to begin with, and does it lead to a call to action that takes people toward a sale? Do you have contact features like live chat or forms? So when someone does have a problem, a question about your product or a question about your service, can they get that answered? Can they just open up a live chat on your website and be able to communicate with you? Or do they have to wait for availability of someone to be able to have that communication? Maybe you have 24/7 sales and support. Maybe you have 8x5. I don't know. But you need to figure out what those pieces are. And remember that support before the sale is just as important as service after the sale, especially when it comes to e-commerce, because I could just leave your website, right? But if I walk into your retail environment, then you have me physically there, and you then have the ability to address me and interact with me. If you have the same thing like live chat or other implementations of engagement technologies, that gives me a greater ability for personalized service and less ability for me to leave without having given you my email address or some other contact information to be able to interact. So you really need to think about these considerations when we're talking about what is e-commerce and why you want to use it. Okay, so I'm going to get off my soapbox there, and we're going to talk a little bit about the idea of selecting an e-commerce platform. And there are a lot of different features to e-commerce, so I just wanted to boil it down to the top 6 for me. And then I can give you those top 6, and that's a good framework from which you can make almost any decision regarding e-commerce platforms. First up is what are you selling? It's so frequently a challenge for people to understand that they choose an e-commerce platform before they know what they're selling, and this is a frequent problem. I sit down with clients and they say, "Oh, you know what? We went with this e-commerce tool, typically a shopping cart tool," and then I say, "Why did you select that?" And they say, "Oh, well, we went with the first thing that we saw that fit our budget." And it turns out that it's a tool that doesn't help them sell the thing that they're trying to sell, and it doesn't help them grow. And what I want you to do is to be poised not only for the products and services that you're selling now, but the products and services that you plan to sell in the future. Even if you think just 18, 24 months from now, what and how could your business be different? We did not think 18 to 24 months from today in the past where we would be right now. But think about it. We are now in this dramatically different place than we were before. And those who have e-commerce solutions in place are experiencing a very different environment than those of us who don't. So we really need to think about, what are we selling? What are you truly selling? Now, you have some options, right? You could sell just digital products. Right? You're selling an ebook, a PDF downloaded guide. You're selling a digital course, a learning course, or something like that. Other things that are just purely things that I can download or access through a web browser or a mobile application or mobile phone. 2 is that you have a hybrid. You sell some digital stuff and you sell some physical stuff. So very similar to how Microsoft might, at one point in the distant history, would have shipped you DVDs or CDs with software on it. So they're selling you a physical item, so they're shipping and doing all those kinds of things. But they can also have emailed you a link to a download site where you could download software as well, right? So you can sell physical and digital products, and it's that hybrid space. You could sell physical products only. So say you have a physical retail environment and you only sell those physical products, and now you want people to be able to buy them online and then be able to either have them have local pickup, curbside pickup, local delivery, or shipping that through one of the major shipping providers, right? So there's all of that stuff as well. Next up is a service. So you only provide services. Say you are, in one of the service industries, whether that be a local service or a distributed service where you don't need to actually be physically with the client. Think accountant or lawyer or something like that, where you really don't need to be face to face with the client in person in order to be able to provide those services. Except, I guess, in the case of a lawyer, should probably show up to court, those kinds of things. Although that's all changing now as well. I see even the Supreme Court is holding hearings virtually now. So either way, you have these different types of products and services that you're selling. Different platforms excel at different types of these. So just give that some consideration. Okay, moving right along. There's, of course, if you're selling physical products of any kind, then you're going to have to think about inventory management and the costs of fulfillment or drop shipping those items. But don't forget that even if you have digital products, you sometimes also have inventory management. So think about it from the perspective that if you are selling a limited number of things, say you're an artist and you are doing a specific type of image where you want to be able to do a caricature of me, right? So you draw that caricature of me and I'm buying that customized product from you as an artist. You don't want that piece of art being sold to anyone else because you're only selling that to me. Well, that's an inventory management issue, and it becomes different in an e-commerce solution than it would be in the physical world. In the physical world, you would, paint it, draw it, whatever, hand it to me, and that would be the end of it. But on the digital world, people can, it's called cyber piracy. And the idea is that people could steal images, they could take images off your website and so on and so forth. So you have to have an e-commerce solution that can solve for those things. So keep that in mind. Just make note of that. If you are selling digital products, or you're selling licenses to things where people have to have a unique code in order to access something, how do you protect yourself against people just sharing that code widely with others? And how can you protect yourself from just mismanagement, right? Because it could just be a mistake internally, and that causes all kinds of problems. So good inventory management systems in e-commerce solve for digital problems, and then other inventory management systems solve for physical inventory management problems. Okay, next up is selling across marketplaces. Some e-commerce solutions are really great for being able to sell directly through your website to customers, but perhaps you sell on Etsy, or you sell on Amazon, or you sell on eBay and other platforms like that. Does this e-commerce solution satisfy for that? And if not, then the e-commerce solution isn't built for what you need it to do. Next up are taking payments and making refunds. One of the biggest problems and challenges I see is not just taking payments, but taking the forms of payments customers want to take. And this means surveying your customers. You need to ask your current existing customers, what types of payment methods do they use? So for me, I now walk around with my phone and I make payments from my phone pretty much as my dominant payment method. It just so happens that my phone has NFC. It has the ability to put my credit card in there, and almost every store that I shop at has an ability for me to just tap my phone and pay by phone. Now, if you want me to pay on your e-commerce solution, you probably should support my Google Pay functionality if I'm your target customer. But if you have a different target customer who's very comfortable with credit card payments, who's very comfortable with bank draft payments, who's comfortable with PayPal or Amazon Pay, or you name it, there are so many different types of payment methods. You need to find out who your customers are and how you can get to them and explain to them, listen, I have this e-commerce solution coming. What are the payment methods you want me to support? And then support those. You don't have to support all of them, but you do have to give options there. And the more you can support, obviously, the better. Flip side, making refunds. This can be a huge headache for a lot of small businesses, because making refunds means not only giving up money that you thought you had in the bank, but it also means in the operational issues that come with it. You have to figure out how much is being refunded. Are we taking an inventory fee? Like if you go to Best Buy and you buy a piece of electronics, they actually charge a 15% restocking fee when you return it back. Are you doing those kinds of things for people not to abuse the e-commerce solution on your website, and to make sure that you can stay above margins month over month? You need to think about these things. And if your e-commerce platform cannot do those things, then they're probably not right for you. Finally, no, next to finally, so penultimately, we have taxes, right? We have to be able to collect and manage and charge the right taxes and all of those other things. And your solution needs to basically make good on those. You need to make sure that you're remitting taxes to the appropriate states or governmental authorities. And so you have to have some kind of tax rate, tax collection, and tax payment management. Whether or not the solution does payment is usually spotty, but at least it gives you all of the information you need to be able to make that payment yourself on a regular basis so that you don't get in trouble with the tax persons. And finally, for physical retailers, this is something that I consistently harp on, but it is that you need to integrate your normal point of sale solution with your e-commerce solution. You cannot have two separate running inventories. You cannot have two concurrent running sets of books. You cannot get the right data to be able to make good business decisions if you have your point of sale solution collecting dollars from clients on one end, potentially with the same or different clients, and collecting that same information and data from the same or different clients on your e-commerce solution. You need those things to be integrated, at the very least synchronizing that data so that you're able to see those pieces together. If you do not, then you only have half the information you're looking at any given time. And this creates a lot of confusion, and it ultimately makes your business decisions worse off than they could be. So you really need to make sure that if you are a physical retailer and you have a point of sale solution, you are collecting and integrating that data into your e-commerce or vice versa. And the best is when they're just all in one, right? Like make sure that they're synchronizing so that you're really able to look at the full picture of how things are selling across one platform or the other, in person or online. Okay, so things to consider as you're making your way through the e-commerce platforms of choice. And you just go from the top to the bottom, just like, okay, what are the different types of things as I'm making my way through? By the time you get to 6, you've usually wiped out all of the platforms that are not going to work for you, and you've come to the few select ones that will. Usually 1 to 2 options are left at that point. And then it becomes preference. It becomes very easy for you to say, okay, well, either of these will work. This one is going to be easier to use. And so then navigation and user experience on the administrative side then becomes the choice, as opposed to one of these fundamentals being and missing the point for you to be able to do the work you need to do. Okay, so at this point, I'm going to hop over to the web browser and show you around some of the tools that exist. And this is always some of my favorite time to spend with you all because I love tools. I just love talking about technology. So I'm going to set my notes over here. And I am going to hopefully be able to bring this up on here. And let me know if you cannot see my screen. So Tracy, nod your head if you can see. Wonderful, wonderful. All right. So first and foremost, I'm just going to talk about the juggernaut, the biggest e-commerce platform in the world, and it's because of a very important reason. WordPress is the open source software that runs a third of the world's websites, and because of that minor fact, just that little detail, it turns out that WooCommerce, which is a plugin, but it's really its own platform within a platform, becomes the biggest e-commerce platform on the planet. And so WooCommerce is this really extensible, meaning that you can extend its features beyond its core functionality. It is flexible in the sense that you can make it do and look the way you want it to. It's open source. Open source means that you can look at the code, different than proprietary, which means that you can't look at the code. But WooCommerce is open source, meaning that if WooCommerce doesn't do something you want it to do, then you can get somebody to come and make it do what you want it to do, which is pretty cool. And so WooCommerce is by far my #1 recommendation regarding e-commerce. And for just sake of argument, know that The next couple of solutions and the next couple of items, if you look at any number of the reviews across the internet, disagree with me. So just keeping honest people honest. Know that I'm a huge WordPress fan. There's a reason why I'm big on WordPress. It's because most of you have WordPress websites, and because most people have WordPress websites, it means that there's always someone you can call on to get help for that. You don't know the number of times when I come across someone, they have a Squarespace website, and they come to me and they say, you know what, I have a problem with my Squarespace website, and I try to find them an expert in that particular narrow vein of the problem they're having, and I really can't find them a solutions provider. I can't find them someone to help them. But man, if I have a problem with WordPress, I just cannot, not find someone. There's always at least a dozen people on my list that I'm like, oh yeah, I know 5 people who do that. And I know 6 people who can help you with that particular issue. So remember that WordPress is one of those platforms where it's because of its size, there's always going to be someone there who can help you with particular issues. So why choose WooCommerce over any of the others? I really think about it from the perspective of how big do you want to grow? And what kind of e-commerce platform are you trying to run? So when I think about WooCommerce, I really think about the big, reasons. That is, you're running a platform that is more than e-commerce. So are you planning on launching a blog or a podcast? Many of the e-commerce platforms now support blogging to some extent, but they're not going to ever be as good as WordPress is at being able to just easily produce a blog and all the functionality that comes with a blog. Certainly not with podcasts. And as Tracy said at the top, I'm a big fan of podcasting, finishing up podcasting for small business. And I just really feel like podcasting is having such a renaissance and such a powerful marketing vehicle. But if you plan on doing brand merchandising that's separate from your own products, that is, if I want to have customized brand merchandise that's my stuff. With many of the other platforms, you kind of have to, massage the features. If you plan to run affiliate programs, some of the other e-commerce platforms do allow running affiliate programs, but many times you want to be able to run an affiliate program with your own terms, with your own list of people. You don't want that information out there in somebody else's platform. If you want to develop a community, many of these platforms are just e-commerce solutions. They're really, shopping carts, and the shopping cart solutions with a website kind of, draped over it. In reality, if you wanted to have a community, you can create that on a WordPress website and go from there. If you were trying to sell e-courses in addition to your Shopify or BigCommerce or the other tools that I'm going to be talking about, you just can't do it. You have to, again, cobble together different pieces. With WordPress and WooCommerce, you can bring that all under one umbrella, all under your domain, and you can do that as well. Selling events and doing event management, it's all kind of makes sense within WooCommerce. So if you're thinking about doing e-commerce and you're looking for a tool, if you're already on WordPress, if you're in a highly regulated industry and you need specialized privacy policies, specialized terms of service, where having some proprietary platforms' terms of service override yours, then WordPress is going to solve your problem, right? So with that argument out the way, let's look at the rest of the options. Actually, I want to talk about a couple things. So one is tax management in WooCommerce. My number one question that I kind of get from folks after how do you get it set up is how do you take care of the tax collection, reporting, and filing? There is a tool called TaxJar, which integrates with a lot of the other e-commerce platforms I'm going to be talking about shortly. And TaxJar, if you go to taxjar.com, they will they handle that for you. They integrate with WooCommerce. They basically do the tax calculations. They provide you reports, and you can use a service they have called AutoFile, and they can actually do remittance for you. So they could do all the tax remittance for you. So they collect all the information, they calculate it, they collect all the information, and then they submit that to the appropriate states and authorities so that you don't even have to worry about it. So they just it's a set it and forget it type of thing. But TaxJar works with Shopify. It works, I think, with BigCommerce. It's going to work with Ecwid. It's going to work with a number of the ones that I'm going to be talking about shortly. Next up is Ecwid. Wonderful. Okay, so this is Ecwid. And and I never know if I'm pronouncing that right, but I'm going to go with Equid. But Equid is more of a shopping cart technology, and this really comes into play that if you have an existing website and you're trying to sell on that website, and primarily they've been known for being able to sell digital products. So if you're trying to sell digital goods, Equid is really phenomenal at that. But it has actually grown from there, and you should be able to handle some level of physical product, things as well. So as you can see here, you can sell across many different platforms. So say you want to be able to push a sales shopping cart onto Instagram or Facebook, you can go ahead and do those. It integrates with your point of sale systems. Really, really flexible, interesting tool. It has an app marketplace. Tax Jar is in there. Many accounting software are in there so that you can just integrate it very easily and quickly with everything else. So this is for, I already have a website, I'm trying to sell primarily digital goods, and I want to be able to do this in a fairly sophisticated way, connecting my data across many different systems and centralizing that data so that I'm able to make good decisions. Okay, next up is the next major kind of juggernaut, and that is Magento. Magento is also open source software. So you have to host the software, and you can always find hosts for Magento. And they have been recently acquired by Adobe. I think $1.6 billion they paid for Magento. So as you can imagine, Adobe has a business interest in Magento and selling Magento to their customers. So who knows what the long-term trajectory of the free open source part of Magento is. I'm presuming that the community edition will stay and will be fine, but it's a fantastic platform. It's great. It has a lot of features. It is very much e-commerce focused. So different than, say, WordPress, which then allows WooCommerce to be kind of applied on top of WordPress. Magento is at its core an e-commerce open source content management system. So it is kind of the blending of both of those with e-commerce forward, as opposed to content forward, content first, then e-commerce. So Magento is an e-commerce focused platform, and is actually really great. It's extensible, meaning that you can extend its capabilities and features akin to WordPress and WooCommerce. And so it's a great tool. And there are a lot of folks out there who work with it. If you ever need an e-commerce partner, I think if you just click on partners on their website, you can be taken and find them. It's going to cost you probably a little bit more than you would for, say, WordPress, WooCommerce development, but ultimately, people do like Magento if they want one that is exclusively e-commerce and there's no other content marketing really around it. They just want a solution that provides it. Say they want to create a marketplace like Amazon, where they're being that solutions provider. You could do that on WordPress. There are plugins that do that, but if you just want a solution that does that, right there out the gate, and it's built for that kind of thing, you would go with Magento. Next up is Gumroad. So Gumroad is a tool, again, for selling digital goods primarily. Now, I would not usually list this as an e-commerce platform, but more and more people are using this tool for e-commerce because of one particular function. So Gumroad itself allows you to be able to sell primarily digital goods. You could sell physical goods here and some other things, but for the most part, it's here for digital goods. And you can both sell them, but also have people subscribe to particular digital products. So say, for example, I have a webinar series and I want to sell that webinar series on an ongoing basis. So, every week I do a webinar, I upload it to the network, up to Gumroad, and whoever is subscribing to it then has access to that thing. So you can go ahead and pay for a one-time fee type product. You can have people rent things and have access to them. But the real killer feature here is that you can have Gumroad set up affiliates for these digital products. So I actually use this tool myself for a in a personal project, I ran a virtual summit last year, and I wanted a place to be able to just quickly and easily set up the webinar, the video replays afterward. And so I was able to set that up in Gumroad, and all the videos are there, and the audio is there, and everything else is there, and it has its own affiliate functionality built into it. And so now anybody who wanted to sell the video replay access could do so right within Gumroad, and I didn't have to manage those pieces. It just did it all for me. I didn't have to track the affiliates or which sales came through. Gumroad's doing all of that for me, and I didn't have to really think about it. So very, very cool. One caveat is that Gumroad, in that first payment, when you're trying to get your first payment, may take an extended amount of time depending upon the size of the payment. So I've seen clients who have set up a Gumroad account and they get their first, $200 sale, $300 sale, and it will just sit there for months and months because Gumroad needs to be able to see for fraud purposes whether or not the sales are coming in and what types of sales and where they're coming from. So it does all of this like fraud prevention monitoring to be able to prevent it. I don't know the actual algorithm for what the determination is, but I have seen clients waiting on that payment. It's not that Gumroad's not going to send it. It's just that they need to do enough fraud prevention, measurements on the account before they can make that payment to you. And so they go through that process and then they make the payment. And then after that, you're good to go. It's just that first one that usually takes some time so that they can get you set up. But again, if you are looking for, again, no front end, marketing, you just want to be able to have a place where you can put products. You already have an email list, you already have strong marketing, and you want to be able to get customers to be able to buy from you on a platform that they can trust. They can access the products through the Gumroad app. So you can, audio, video, all streaming, all through the Gumroad app, ebooks, workbooks, all in PDF, any of those kinds of things. They can do all of that and access it all through Gumroad. And you can set up an affiliate program. So you can find marketing alliances who can sell your products for you. And Gumroad does all the work. I mean, it's really, really sophisticated. Plus, it's a marketplace, people who can serendipitously discover your products here in the discovery section on Gumroad. You can do an okay job of bringing people to your products by search engine optimizing for Gumroad, the Gumroad search engine for being able to be found there. Okay, next up is Shopify. Now, Shopify, I will say, in most of the reviews that are out there, end up topping the list. There's a couple of reasons for that. Shopify across the board in terms of an e-commerce platform is built specifically for e-commerce. It's also huge and has the ability to extend itself using Shopify integrations, meaning that you can connect it to other products and services through the integration platform that it's created. So it's done a really, really good job there. It excels at e-commerce, and then it starts to choke on the rest of it. So remember that if you are only running e-commerce, you want an e-commerce storefront, you don't care so much about specialized design, and you just want to use one of their professional themes, you want it to be mobile ready, heck, Shopify has something called their mobile app builder, and it allows you to be able to take your Shopify storefront and create your own mobile application directly from it, and you're good to go. You basically have your own mobile app. I think it's down here. There it is. So you can this is the management side, but there's actually a Shopify app builder that allows you to be able to structure your own mobile applications so people can find you in the Google Play and iOS app stores. And so you have a lot of really great features here. What I like about their shopping cart piece here, and I'm going to talk a little bit about this later, it has a lot of the features I like for being able to increase sales across many different places. That is the idea for abandoned checkout, and they have multiple languages. They have, it says here, 100 payment gateways. I mean, if there's a way for someone to pay you, Shopify has a way for them to give you that money. It's remarkable how they have really worked very hard to make sure that if you want to give a business some money on Shopify, they will take your money. So it's very, very good for that. It's got excellent hosting. Their their SEO is decent. It's not going to be, stuff that you can customize in large swaths or in very specific ways, but for the most part, its SEO is decent. And so you're going to get good marketing SEO. It has good inventory management, so you can have a lot of products and manage those products in a very easy inventory management position. And that includes digital products as well. So you can really do a lot with Shopify in terms of inventory management, which I really like. And then you have analytics. They give you reporting tools and functions. And of course, for any small business, it's great to have a 24/7 sales and support team who could just be there to help you and otherwise. They do come with the ability to reach out to Shopify experts. These are paid consultants who you can reach out to and get help from if you need to kind of next level your Shopify. So if you run up into a problem in a DIY capacity, you can then reach out to one of these Shopify experts who can then go ahead and help you go beyond that. So that's useful and helpful. And again, that's different than other platforms where you may not be able to find somebody who can actually help you specifically with e-commerce on that platform just because they haven't had it for long enough. Okay, quick aside, Shopify has this free tools section on their website, and I love it. And so if you just go up to Shopify's website, hover over Learn, and then down to free tools, you will find on their site all of these various tools. They've got a logo maker, business name generator, tagline maker called Slogan Maker, pay stub generator, terms and conditions. They have a refund policy somewhere in here, privacy policy generator. I mean, a bill of lading template. I mean, they have it all in this little tiny section on their website. They just have all these things. One of the cool parts is they actually have an exchange marketplace. In essence, if you want to sell your Shopify store at some point, they give you a place for being able to buy and sell Shopify stores right there on the site. So if you are in the position to purchase a store that's already in existence, they give you the functionality to be able to do that right here on Shopify. So it's pretty phenomenal that they have all of these, like image resizer, business cart. I mean, I'm not going to read them all, but they're all there. Look at them. They're really cool tools. Okay, back on track. Now we're going down to our next tier of providers. These are well-regarded tools, but certainly once we leave the class of WooCommerce and Shopify and Ecwid, which runs on many different platforms in the background and as a function of another website, we now come down to the next tier. They're smaller, but by no means does that mean that they're worse than any other tool. They're just remarkably smaller than, say, a WooCommerce or a Shopify. Okay, and that is BigCommerce. BigCommerce is a really great tool that allows you to be able to build a what we call a headless commerce environment. So in essence, I can take BigCommerce, I can stick it on WordPress. I can use BigCommerce by itself. I could do all kinds of really flexible things with regard to BigCommerce just from the tool itself giving me those capabilities. So BigCommerce is a great platform. There's all the features I probably talked about with regard to WooCommerce are there, and probably they're probably comparable in the way in which you can make those things happen, just because you can just take BigCommerce and add it to WordPress and then extend upon it from there. Really, its best use cases are in these areas: B2B, if you're doing wholesale, or if you're doing multi-channel sales sites, e-commerce platforms, then BigCommerce does a really good job in those. So just paying attention that if you're really trying to do a wholesale business or you're doing multi-channel, this is a good platform to look at. Okay. Next up. Oh, Squarespace. All right. So Squarespace is well known as a WYSIWYG editor, a WYSIWYG site. It provides you a series of templates, and then you fill in those templates, and you have a beautiful website. Well, they now have online stores where you can actually create your own Squarespace stores. They're beautiful. I mean, as you can see here, they just do a really great job from a front-end design perspective. The templates are beautiful. The way in which they have the mobile view is beautiful, and all of those things. It's really, really great. This chokes at large inventory. So once you go above probably 25 products or so, you're going to start seeing Squarespace troubles, not from it hiccuping, but from you as a business owner not being able to manage within the interface. The interface is just not built for a huge number of products. While it says here it sells unlimited products, sure, it could, but you would not want to. So at that point, you would probably want to elevate to a BigCommerce or a WooCommerce or a Shopify type of environment, just because the system is not built for that kind of level of speed and otherwise. They have recently just added the ability for you to sell services on the platform, meaning that you can schedule appointments through online bookings on the website and integrating with other calendars or your own calendar yourself, say a Google Calendar or Microsoft Calendar or otherwise. It gives a lot of marketing tools in the back end of Squarespace, which I really like. It just bundles those things together for you. I have not particularly liked its blogging and podcasting interface. It's kind of clunky and seems buried away from where it should be. If the world is content forward, it seems like Squarespace makes its admin pieces a little bit back of the bus, and I don't particularly like that. But you can sell subscriptions. You can do offline sales and all kinds of other things. It does an okay job with regard to payment options and tax collection, and I believe it integrates with TaxJar. Someone can correct me on that one, but I think it does. And you have a mobile app for being able to run the store and otherwise. So Squarespace is a great option. If you already have a Squarespace site, you can just migrate that to the store, one of the store products, and then start from there. Again, if you have that smaller set of product base, you're going to be okay. Once you get beyond that, then you're going to have a few problems. That is almost the same statement for Wix. Wix is the platform that people know as a website builder, akin to Squarespace. They now have Wix stores, which allows you to be able to do a wide variety of tools, some really sophisticated ones at that. So remember when I talked about brand merchandising and why you would choose WordPress? Well, because you could set up your own brand merchandising store within WordPress that was just exclusively printing t-shirts and mugs and whatever through a third party. Well, Wix has those integrations built right into it. It has customer loyalty tools and other kinds of payment workflows that are very, very sophisticated for the tool. Again, we're going to go back to this issue that once you get to a particular size of inventory, Wix is no longer going to be really satisfactory for you. And certainly, if you want to do anything beyond the tools that it's providing, then you have very limited abilities. They do have, integrations and ways that you can extend the tool, but they're going to be the way they implemented it, not the way in which you might want it. And then you're going to probably be looking at something more custom. Okay, we're getting to the end, and this is Square. So most people know Square as the payment tool that allows you to be able to, take payments on your mobile device in, if you're at a farmer's market, if you're a food truck, those kinds of things. But Square actually has their own online store that you can actually produce and use. It's actually really good. I've been really pleased with the clients I've seen using it. It integrates with point of sale systems really well because Square itself has a strength there, and it integrates with other e-commerce solutions. So if, for example, you want to use your WordPress website, you can easily integrate WooCommerce with Square as a payment option, and therefore not have to worry about keeping additional independent inventory and all of those kinds of pieces. Plus, it's going to integrate naturally with your point of sale system if you have one already. Which is Square in essence. So you really have this great piece. Note that during the situation through June 30th, they're giving free curbside pickup and local delivery through the online store. So they're not charging you for those fees through June 30th. So that's a pretty nice benefit for those who need it right now. And and so it's a really, really cool tool. It has extensibility to Instagram and Facebook, and it does online appointments. It has some really good features, I feel, for a tool that is really meant for just taking payments. But again, it excels at payments, right? So I gave you that example of taking my Google Pay at the top of the webinar. Well, they take Google Pay, they take Apple Pay, they take all kinds of things. And it's just a really nice, slick system. It seems to always work. Clients who use it don't have problems, and so it's just a nice feature there. It can handle a good size inventory as well. So if you are already on Square and you want to increase inventory, I don't see a lot of clients having problems managing large inventories in there. So that's actually a good thing. The bigger issue is probably going to be managing tax remittance and those kinds of things, and just making sure that you're paying attention to the platform for those purposes. Okay, so that's Square. That brings us to the end of the discussion on tools. And if you have questions about those, feel free to throw those in the question panel, and we'll get to those very shortly during Q&A. What I wanted to do, though, is to bring up just a couple of things with regard to any of the platforms that we're talking about. And just first and foremost is that Google just announced, I think a week ago, that they would be changing their Google Merchant Center policies. So prior to this, Google started charging what are called Google Smart Campaigns, Google Shopping Smart Campaigns. In essence, if you wanted to be found in Google through Google Shopping, so if I go to google.com and I typed in men's dress shoes, it would pull up Google Shopping. Most of the products that were being listed there were listed because someone was paying for those products to be listed there. Google is removing that barrier so more products from small businesses can actually be listed in the Google Merchant Center and therefore be found just by searching Google. This is a very, very powerful capability. They're reducing the barrier to entry by removing the cost associated with it, which is just powerful. And so if your e-commerce solution, you're thinking about e-commerce, you're thinking about what platform to use, make sure that it has an integration or the ability for you to produce what's called a Google product feed. And that Google product feed needs to be able to work in the Google Merchant Center. Okay, so you go to the Google Merchant Center, you apply that Google product feed. It's just like a blog or a podcast RSS feed, and it's a file that feeds that information into Google, like product inventory, sizes, colors, and other kinds of options according to that location, so that people can say, you know what, I want a pair of men's dress shoes that are size 11 and a half in black in this area code. And now they'll be able to find it in Google Shopping and therefore be able to have it shipped locally, curbside pickup, you name it, all from this perspective. So very, very cool. And thank you to Google for bringing that product to us for free again, because it was free at one time and then they started charging for it, and now they're thankfully making it free again. So couple other considerations as we make our way along. Really, you have to start thinking about the mobile world in just beyond the borders of building a mobile e-commerce solution. So I think that's the first step, right? Is getting that mobile, getting that e-commerce platform developed out and making sure you have all the fundamentals. But you really then need to think about how are you going to be positioned for mobile in the future. As I said before, we have our first 2 billion people shopping online and buying through e-commerce. What about the next 4 and the next 2 after that, and so on and so forth? We need to make sure that as we move forward as small business owners, we're poised for future growth, meaning that a lot of people are going to be looking to purchase through their mobile devices and purchase on a regular basis. I do this myself. I have the Target app, and I find myself in Target and Amazon looking at products and purchasing, fairly easily because I'm inculcated in their system. They've got my payment information. They know my needs. They know my wants. They're tracking all of that information and giving me great suggestions. Your small business needs to start doing the same thing. Producing a mobile application is the way in which you can do that, and it is not as difficult as you think. So first and foremost, as I said before, if you go with Shopify or WooCommerce or others, there are tools that allow you to be able to produce a mobile application right out the gate and publish to it. In Shopify's case, it's the Shopify mobile app builder. But if you were on WooCommerce, there are WordPress tools that do this. One of them is Business. You literally just take your mobile website, your mobile e-commerce solution, and you plug in the URL, and business does the rest. It helps you produce a website. AppyPie does this as well. AppyPie is even more powerful, I think, because you can actually build, they have something called the App Maker. So this is in addition to just wrapping your mobile website and mobile e-commerce site inside of an app, but you can actually add additional functionality. Remember, people come to websites mostly for tools. They come for it to do something for them. So it's very natural for them to look for a mobile application that has functionality caked into it. It's not just about buying from me. It's about, can you do something? Can you facilitate a function for me that then leads to a sale? And a tool like AppyPie's App Maker can do that. There are many others out there. There's BuildFire and GoodBarber and many other tools for you to be able to very easily and seamlessly publish a progressive web app, an iOS app into the App Store, or a Google Play Store for Android, and definitely look into those considerations. Then also look to local retail apps. There are many apps out there where maybe your local Chamber of Commerce has an application that they've developed, or a local economic development agency like your Convention and Visitors Association. Since the travel and tourism industry has been one of the hardest hit in this particular environment, those folks may be looking for new members, and helping with local retail is one way they can do that. So maybe they expand the apps to be able to make those things happen. So look to local retail apps as well. Those are applications already developed by local economic development or local businesses that have pulled these things together. We all know the what's the coupon book? The coupon books that we buy, entertainment. Yeah, I think that is the one, or entertainment coupon books. It's like that, but in a mobile environment now, where people can actually engage in these things. We know Groupon, and we know Living Social and those kinds of things, but there are ones that are specifically created in your local communities. And if there is one of these, that's going to be probably a heck of a lot more value to you than going with a Groupon or a Living Social type environment. Okay. Consider dynamic pricing. There are a host of tools that are out there. Shopify has it built in, and there's other platforms that have this built in. WooCommerce has plugins that allow you to do this. In essence, what dynamic pricing means is that you probably don't know this, but Amazon changes their prices all the time. You know how they do that? They go out there and they look at other websites that are selling the same products, and then they start crunching numbers, and they determine what's the price that we can set that's just enough to make you want to buy it. Well, your website can do the same thing. Your e-commerce solution has that functionality. If your e-commerce solution has that functionality, absolutely turn it on. What it does is it helps to adjust the pricing and give you an edge in terms of, if I'm going to buy from Amazon or I'm going to buy from you, if the pricing is equal or just a little bit cheaper, it doesn't have to be a lot cheaper, just a little bit cheaper, and sometimes even more expensive. Sometimes just making it a little bit more expensive in some industries actually makes someone choose to buy that product over Amazon. In some cases, it's very odd. Humans are odd. But the dynamic pricing tools are really, really, really cool tools. And it's not just for Target and Amazon and Walmart and so on and so forth. They are available now for small businesses. Second is abandoned shopping cart recovery. These are tools that execute an email to the buyer and says, hey, by the way, you left your shopping cart full of items. You should go check that out. Or the next time you visit the website, it holds the shopping cart and says, hey, by the way, you left yesterday, you came back. Did you still want to buy these items? So that I don't have to re-add those items to my shopping cart. Maybe it gives me a little prompt before I leave the website that says, hey, by the way, you've got your shopping cart still with some items. Did you want to check out now? And just gives me a little bit of a prompt to be able to do so. Abandoned shopping cart recovery is really, really powerful. Tools that help you solicit reviews is also very important. So look at Yotpo and Trustpilot and so on and so forth for being able to solicit reviews, so that when someone purchases from you, you then follow up with them and get a review so that you can generate more content, user-generated content, UGC, on the website, on the e-commerce solutions to increase search engine optimization for you. I talked about live chat already. I think that live chat is just one of those really important pieces of e-commerce that a lot of people forget. When you walk into a retail store and people say, hi, how are you doing? If you have any questions, feel free to ask me, to show you any products that we have, or maybe ones that we have in inventory behind the counter. That's what live chat is. And people really enjoy the personality and personability of being able to interact with people there. Okay, then we get to mobile loyalty apps. And this, of course, is for primarily driving in-store traffic, but it can be for driving people back to your e-commerce solution. And the point is just, if you're using a tool that allows for people to, every time they make a purchase, they get an addition to their world, they're able to do that. And then, they build up rewards, and they can either use them at your store, or they can use them at other stores in the aggregate. And then, of course, in this day and age where we are dealing with the aftermath of the pandemic, offering local checkout, meaning that I can purchase online and potentially come and pay in person, curbside delivery, as well as just delivery general, local delivery, are really important features for small business, because you may not be able to afford USPS or UPS or FedEx at scale, but in your local community, you could probably afford local delivery through some of these services in the short term, so that you can get people buying from you online and getting comfortable with it, and then eventually transitioning to a larger scale operation where you can use something like ShipStation, which is a software that allows you to be able to manage shipping and fulfillment things from online, from e-commerce, a little bit better. But start off small, start off using these tools so that you can do local checkout, local curbside delivery, and local delivery generally, and then see where it goes from there. Okay, so with that, we are at the top of the hour, and I'm happy to answer questions. I know that Tracy's going to need to close us out, and then I will be happy to stay and answer any questions that you all have.
Thanks, Ray. This was a great presentation. I am going to go ahead and close us out. So those of you who have other things that you need to get to can do that. But as Ray said, he'll stay around afterwards. This was a great presentation, Ray. Thanks to you and to the Lord Fairfax SBDC, one of our local offices that helped us put together this webinar series. Be sure to join us at 1 p.m. for the rest of the week. This week, we'll be delivering presentations. Tomorrow, Ray will be with us again doing marketing and promoting your business on the web. Wednesday, we have a cybersecurity expert from the Lord Fairfax SBDC, Tom Stamulius, presenting how to best protect your business online. And then on Thursday, Jeff Nicely of the Lord Fairfax SBDC will be talking about 3 things you can do to connect your customers during social distancing. This webinar was recorded and it'll be posted on our website. So continue to look at our website for the recordings of these, as well as any additional virtual trainings that we'll be putting together to help as we all learn to navigate doing business in this new environment. So with that, let me get to the questions. All right.
I've got my coffee. I'm caffeinated. I'm ready.
Do you have a recommendation for a dynamic pricing tool?
Oh, there is. Okay, so you have my email on screen. If you email me, I will look it up. It's in my system, and I can give you the name of the one that I typically recommend. I will be sharing this slide deck with Tracy, and she'll be sending that out to you. This is a dynamic slide deck, so I will be able to add the link to that in the slides. So after the presentation, I will look up the name of that tool, and I will add it to this, and then you'll have access to that. But if you shoot me an email, I will also email it to you directly, because the name is not coming to me, but I know I have it in my bookmarks.
Great. What are the associated costs and fees for all the platforms?
Sure. So they absolutely range. So if you're starting with a new website, you're going to spend several hundred to several thousands of dollars to develop out a site. Then if you're using one of these, what you see is what you get type platforms like Shopify, Squarespace, Wix, Store, and so on and so forth, you're spending tens of dollars per month, up to potentially hundreds of dollars per month. For example, Shopify can go up to hundreds of dollars per month, depending upon what you're trying to do. And if you decide to, say, launch a mobile e-commerce store, like through Shopify, or using an app builder to wrap a WordPress installation, then you're starting to eke up into the hundreds of dollars per month for those kinds of things. So it's just something that you need to budget for, and presumably sales will go ahead and compensate for what should be a minimal cost comparative to the opportunity and the gains.
How do you access the Google product feed?
That depends on the e-commerce solution that you are using. So you need to talk to the e-commerce platform that you're using or choosing that you're going to choose, and make sure that they can give you detailed instructions on how to access that Google product feed. Like I said, it's just a link, right? So it'll start with HTTPS and it'll end in either .json or .xml or something like that. And then you will just put that into the Google Merchant Center. The Google Merchant Center, when you log in, it's free to log into the system. And now supposedly it's free, to put these into Google Shopping, all told. But once you put it in there, just literally have a field and then say, here, submit that field. Very similar to if you've ever submitted your sitemap to Google Search Console. It's very similar. You're just going to type in this URL to this hyperlink, and it goes with it. It takes it for you. So, but you do have to talk to your specific e-commerce solution for getting that thing.
What platforms work with the Clover POS system?
So Clover integrates with actually a wide number of tools. I would probably talk to Clover, but they, as we talked about before, they work across a number of different. I'd have to look it up on my. I have a little document here that Clover sent me some time ago, which had a bunch of pieces. But I will say that while I'm looking this up, Clover actually has their own e-commerce solution. So if you wanted to just literally launch on Clover, you could do that. And I'm pulling it up now because I know that I had this in my Evernote, but I shut down Evernote on this computer, so I would not have any problems here while I was talking to you. But they do have lots and lots of integration options. If you go to clover.com/integrations, they talk about all their various integrations there. And I can't pull it up right now, but if you go to clover.com, they will go through all of their solutions. I think it's under their resources section. Click on help, and you can see all of the various things that they have, as well as their app market, which shows all of their integrations as well there. I'm pulling up their app market right now because they have so many different connections, but you should probably be able to find what you're looking for in there. I mean, they connect to almost everything that I can think of in terms of what you would need from a functionality perspective. So yeah, just go to clover.com/app market to see all of the external apps that work with it and go from there. If you have any questions, just shoot me an email and I can answer questions about specific app integrations. But yeah.
Okay. So here's another one, similar, little different. We're looking at POS options such as Clover and ShopKeep for an online store for gifts and custom vinyl. Is there a system you think is far ahead the other to manage the e-commerce platform?
So I would probably, so it depends on how you're producing the products, whether are you drop shipping, or if you are producing them in-house and doing fulfillment yourself. That's going to be a huge, difference between which platform you choose. At that point, I would probably look at WooCommerce or Magento to be able to build your own. And then the other side is looking at Shopify and seeing if there is an integration. I believe Shopify has a Clover integration. Again, I'm going to have to look that up myself. And I'm almost certain that they do. Yeah, they do. And it's a third party that does it, but it's called SKU IQ, and that allows you to be able to integrate Shopify and Clover. So again, if you have questions relating to the specifics of how you're actually producing those products, whether you're drop shipping or in-house manufacturing and doing fulfillment yourself, it just depends on how big the operation is before the dollars and cents make sense to do it yourself versus having something like Shopify run it with SKU IQ or otherwise.
Okay. What's the advantage of putting your BigCommerce website into WordPress?
So it's providing you with a solution that you don't have to deal with, in essence, right? So with WordPress and WooCommerce, you need to make sure that you're updating WooCommerce. There's administrative maintenance functions that need to be kept to make sure that your WooCommerce is staying in good working order. Those maintenance issues go away, but so does customization to some extent when you go to BigCommerce, because BigCommerce is providing you with all of that software update and all of those other background maintenance items without you having to do them. That's really the big benefit.
Ray, did you have a phone number for BigCommerce?
I do not have a phone number for BigCommerce, but I can look up. Let's see, what does BigCommerce give us when we go to their site? Yeah, so their numbers 888-248-9325.
Thank you.
So 888-248-9325.
I'm a consulting and public speaking business. Does Woo work for me too?
Yes, but this is something that I didn't say during the presentation, but this is really important. So thank you for bringing up that question, which is that there are very specific industries as well as other kinds of, specific e-commerce solutions that you should think about first. So if your industry, like if you have a real estate agency, I would look at all the real estate products first before you go with a generic tool like Shopify. There are real estate focused e-commerce solutions, and those might be much better for you than going with something like Shopify, okay, or WooCommerce or otherwise. In your case, if you have a public speaking business and you're thinking about using WooCommerce, absolutely, WooCommerce has all of the functionality to be able to do that. If you want to do it a little bit easier, a little bit more simpler, there is a subscription tool called Amelia for WordPress, and Amelia is quite brilliant. It takes a little bit to get the up and running, like understanding how the tool settings work. But once you connect your calendar to it and do other kinds of things, you can actually use WooCommerce with Amelia. You could set up the two to be able to do some more sophisticated things. But Amelia by itself allows people to be able to, in essence, hire you for speaking gigs and all that other fun stuff directly through the site. So that's one option. But if you want to use WooCommerce by itself, yes, it absolutely can do what you need it to do.
What's the most important feature of an e-commerce website in your opinion?
The ability to take my money. If it can't take my money, like what's the use of the tool, right? So that is absolutely for me primary. Many times, as I said at the top, the selection criteria, the really falls lower on the list, right? As like number 4 or 5 that I said was taking payments, but really it's fundamental, it's core. If this tool doesn't know how to take my money in the way in which I want to give it, then it's not going to be valuable to me. So that's really important. But going according to my criteria, my first criteria was the e-commerce platform needs to be able to sell the type of product you're selling, right? It needs to be able to do the functions of selling that tool. So if you're selling physical products and you go to Ecwid and you realize Ecwid can't sell the type of physical products you are selling, then it's not useful to you. And that's going to be that primary function. So use that checklist at the top of filtering down the tools. Go tool by tool and say, okay, can this do what I want it to do in this category, then this category, then that one. Once you get through 1 through 6, like I said, you'll be down to a short list of tools that will better define what you were looking for.
A couple of these questions are really specific to platforms, but what e-commerce platform do you suggest for selling, promoting event management services?
So I don't think there's any one particular one. I would probably end up going with WooCommerce if you have a WordPress website already, and just being done with it, because WooCommerce and WordPress would allow you to be able to integrate with a lot of different event management tools, which would give you a leg up in that space.
And another, federal contracting, insurance, e-commerce, and branding my own product. Which platform would you recommend?
WooCommerce.
Do you
That's
have a payment gateway that you recommend? Shopify seems to be expensive, and if I use my own gateway, then they charge extra.
So if you mean that you have a retail gateway, like a point of sale solution on your side that's connecting to a gateway, I would look at Stripe. Potentially, depends on how Stripe has done a really good job of making it more efficient for you not to have to do so much in terms of being a developer and really, programmery, but they've done a really good job of being able to help you integrate those things into your website. I would also look at PayPal's solutions, if that's something that is going to work on your website the way you want it to, and then if you're thinking on a mobile side, Bolt. Again, all of those are going to probably require a little bit of DIY techiness, but I would look at those. But I'd also go to your current credit processing company, your payment processor, and negotiate, and see what they would be willing to do with you and for you by bundling those pieces together. It's really tough to have multiple processors and gateways running in the same business. Just from an accounting perspective, you want to really get those things into the same tools in the same places. I really believe in integrating those pieces, and even if it charges you just a little bit more, if the margins allow for it, it's worth it so that you can aggregate that data and make better decisions downstream, which may mean go to a completely different payment processor if you're able to, that's going to charge you less, and maybe it's a longer contract, but you're going to now get all the features you want, as opposed to starting off in a place where you're going to long-term regret having not had that information.
Okay. We have a couple of questions here that are kind of outside of the scope of this presentation. So I'm going to read them out to you. And then I'm going to suggest that both of you folks reach out to your local SBDCs as well to talk to them about these, because they're not really specific to the type of platform. But what is the best shipping means to use so customers don't feel you're charging too much for shipping? Is one, and then the other is now the time to introduce a new software program that saves time and money on EPA lead-based projects for contractors. We're set to launch sales in April 2020, online sales, and are unsure if it'd be wise to do so given the economic situation.
Yeah. So to the first question, to the former question, the best shipping is the one that gets it to your customer on time, and so it's matching their expectations. People have different expectations right now. This is the Road to Recovery series, right? So think about it from the perspective that right now, shipping may just be a little bit different for people. I'm comfortable with the fact that there are delays for non-essential goods coming to me. But if this were 4 months ago, I may not have been so forgiving. So just consider the nature of the customer and making sure that you're communicating with them those issues. Really, this has to do with communication. And so maybe I want a product, but I'm willing to delay the product's delivery for a lower shipping fee, a lower shipping rate. That means that your business saves money, the customer saves money, as long as you're communicating with them what those delivery timelines are going to be. Then if I want more speed, I want it to be faster, and I want it to be delivered in some more aggressive time frame, then I'm going to pay more. And as long as you are letting me know that up front, then I have the opportunity to make that choice. But you're gonna have to go and do some research against the various different shipping providers who can provide those services. And again, I talked about the top ones: USPS, FedEx, UPS, and otherwise. Just look at them and see what their pricing is for businesses. Create a business account, run the calculations, and see what they're going to be for you, and then make that determination. As to the latter question about whether now is the new time for new programs and so on and so forth, it sounds to me like you're in a particular niche of an industry that could be beneficial. I'm not sure. I'd have to really sit down and consider all the factors for the business and where you are positioned in terms of, doing that. So I'm not sure I can give that advice with just that little bit of information. But as Tracy said, I would, fully support the recommendation to reach out to your local SBDC, reach out to your local center, and sit down with a counselor and work that issue out along with your business plan.
Great. Thank you, Reg. Those are all the questions that we have for today. Thanks everyone for attending, and Ray, thanks for staying on and answering all the last minute questions. All right, hopefully we'll see everybody tomorrow.